Hi, everybody. And by everybody, I mean my four beautiful YouTube subscribers and the people who are following this project on Discord. What's up? This video has been in the making for a full week, I think. I'm hoping I finally have it. Let's see. All right, for my YouTube people, about the Candyman series, that has been put to permanent hiatus. It is no longer in the rotation for active working projects. Um, I'm concluding it along with the conclusion of the channel that was inspired by Memento Mori. Thank you so much for watching, and it'll remain up for as long as you want to see it, and there might be some additional unused footage that I might release later. Let's see. Uh, right. Just so you know, this is going out to two separate audiences at the same time, my Discord audience and my YouTube audience. So just know that if you seem to be missing context for something, it's just because it was from the other group. Don't worry too much about it. You can always check out my YouTube if you're from the Discord. Let's see. Oh yeah, and thank you, truly, to everybody from the Discord who has been helping me try to piece together this sort of like mess of a project. I know I have gone through so many ideas so far, and it may be frustrating. At least from my perspective, it feels frustrating, but I've worked on it a lot longer in private than I have on the internet, and I just gotta say I feel like I'm making good progress. So don't worry, it'll keep being refined over time, especially thanks to the people who've been helping me. Um, I'm gonna go over my itinerary for this video because it's probably gonna be kind of long. It might end up reaching an hour, so I just wanted to give you the general timeline first. First, I'm going to go over briefly what conlangs are for those who are uninitiated. Then I'm going to go over what led up to me deciding to make Lafya. Then I'm going to review the past versions of Lafya to catch you up to where things are going and why. And then I'm going to go over the shortcomings of the current system, and after that, solutions for how to go forward from there. Um, and then that should be it. So here we go. Conlanging basics. Not how to make one, but just what it is, just so that this doesn't go over the heads of people who are joining in from nothing. Um, let's see. The two best examples are probably Klingon and Esperanto. Klingon was made for a fictional setting, and Esperanto was made for use in real life. Essentially, it's just a language that was made on purpose for a specific purpose, sometimes even just by one person, instead of made by the march of time and hundreds of years of history and culture shaping things in a sort of more organic, natural way that ends up being more accidental than purposeful. Conlangs are all purpose, no accident. I mean, depending on how you make them, I guess. But let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just short for constructed language, and honestly, it's fairly accessible. You can just make one. You don't have to be good at linguistics first, although it helps, certainly. But you can kind of just go for it from a playful perspective if you need something for a project, or if you just want to try your hand at improving your first language. I know this is a very tempting thing for a lot of English speakers, and for good reason. Um, you may be interested in other people who are doing similar projects. Okay, so Lafya specifically. Let me just go ahead and open up the Google Doc. This was my first go at making a reference for Lafya. Let's see. in case you can't read what it says at the top, Lafya, the language of nature, magic, and piles of string. So the writing system actually came first. But before that, I'm going to go into why it started. So, I'm a witch. I know that's a controversial identity, but hey to all the other witches out there. How you doing? I'm specifically an eclectic artificer, which means that I like to make magical tools, and I don't subscribe to any particular paradigm. I wanted a language that met my needs for chanting and sigil making. And if you really think about it, there's not a lot of options if you're going for something not in your natural language. So when people do sigils and chanting, you especially chanting, you basically you either pick your first language or you pick something like Latin or a Celtic language, and and maybe if you're using a writing system, it might be Theban, or another cipher or cryptolang, um, or there's even some languages that are specific to a certain culture and practice of magic. For instance, Enochian is specific to Enochian magic, um, and none of those options really felt right to me. That it feels like there's no like actual fully functional non-denominational magic purposeful language. There just isn't one. I mean, um Theban is literally just different symbols for the Latin alphabet, and there's a lot of things that are similar. And while those things are really cool for what they are, um I was kind of just wondering, why haven't we ever tried making a sort of, what would you call it? It's kind of a linguistic paradigm to match a magical paradigm. Um, there's something called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis that I wanted to incorporate into this project. It's the idea that what your language allows you to speak about with ease is a concept that becomes more natural to you. Likewise, a concept that takes a lot of time to explain will feel more alien and divorced from your daily life, and not only your intuition, but also potentially your philosophy and even your morals. Um, I've noticed this just with speaking English. For instance, okay, if you have a mental health disorder and you haven't got a diagnosis and you don't know what it is, the label you might put on it would be something like weird or creepy, right? Or at least from other people's perspectives, because they don't know what's happening or why. But once you have a diagnosis, it suddenly is just like, oh, well, of course it's happening like this, because this is happening. It all becomes very familiar and easy to communicate. And it's not just the ease of communication that changes, it's also the entire vibe changing from something that feels a little bit more monstrous or alien into something that is more matter of fact and typical, or at least more part of daily life. And I think that's why I believe the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis and why I want to play with it. Because, uh, you know, it really does seem like how we talk about things changes how we think about them. So given that, this language is supposed to be a way to make it easier to talk and think about magic. And the exact paradigm is, well, it's specifically non-exact, but I would say the closest thing would be an earth-based spirituality. But it's non-denominational, it's not specific to any practice. In fact, this should be able to be useful to everybody from hardcore atheists to hardcore Catholics, because the concepts are all just like normal concepts. You just use them however you want. That's the thing about a fully functional language, and not something like the Elder Scrolls languages, is that in a nicely rounded out conlang, you should be able to talk about whatever you want, and that's important to me in this project. So let's see. All right, so Lafya started out with certain inspirations. I would say the inspirations definitely include, from a linguistics perspective, languages like Japanese and Hawaiian, as well as conlangs such as Sindarin and Tokipona. Sindarin mostly for the aesthetic. The others mostly for how I want the consonants and vowels to play with each other. For instance, I wanted it to have a very small sound inventory. As you can see, I only have 7 consonants and 3 vowels. Have na, ya, wa, la, fa, ha, and ra, and this is rhotic or non-rhotic. And as you can see, there's no ka, ta, pa, or anything like that. They're all very nasally or liquidy or breathy. And that's very much on purpose. I wanted this to be a language that felt more delicate and decorative, because that's exactly what it is. So it's designed so that the aesthetic is the main point. I find it easier to do magic when it feels beautiful to do it. I think magic is very tightly intertwined with art, and so I think this is one of the ways I can facilitate what I'm trying to facilitate. The vowels a, e. The reason I'm using only 3 is to make it so that they are more distinct from each other. So if you start leaning one way or the other, they're easy to tell apart. And why I don't have o or oo is the same reason as before. I wanted it to sound more delicate and lightweight, like a feather or flower. And so having the lower vowels removed helps towards that goal. Let's see. Right, the writing system. This is a pretty good example of how it originally worked, and it's close to how it currently works. Essentially, you have these loopy-doops, and each letter or phonetic phoneme, I think it is. Every phoneme has its own loopy-doop. And the consonants start from a bottom corner and raise up before completing going down towards a different thing. In other words, they start from the bottom left corner going to the upper right, and then they come down from the upper right to the bottom sort of middle area. And of course the vowels, they do the other way around, so that you can kind of string them along up, down, up, down, up, down, in theory. But for what you're seeing here, that's only true for the HI, these 2 first parts in Hielan. The others, as you can see, kind of breaks the CV syllable structure, and keeps going. When I first made this, there was no canonical syllable structure. It was just whatever looked good and sounded good. But the important thing to note is that this is a continuous string writing system, and that there are it's kind of basically designed to resemble string being laid on the ground, or perhaps like sand being poured onto a flat surface. Essentially, it's just one continuous fluid movement. And if you end a word or a sentence and you want to go to the next line, you literally just swoop the line down and you start again. And that's basically how it works. Let me show you some of the writing examples. This is a different version of the alphabet. I'll talk more about that later. This is some example sentences. This was when na nalawa meant I exist. As you can see here, this is a space between na and nalawa. And, hold on. And this is a period to indicate the end of the sentence. So, this is a good example of seeing how the vowels sit under the consonants. So this is n, this is the N, A, then N, E, then L, A, then W, A. So as you can see, they're designed to kind of go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until they complete the word. Here's a full page of writing. A friend was helping me by doing some line copying. I wanted to see if sloppy handwriting made it illegible or not, and I've found that so far, it seems that sloppy writing does not seem to hinder legibility. For instance, you can kind of always see where the space in the sentence is. It's that loop right there, and you can kind of always tell the way they wrote their eyes. They kind of had them on the floor. As you can see, I was correcting them on the eye writing here. But importantly, you can kind of always tell when it's supposed to be an I. You know, this would be an A, this would be an A, this is an E. So I know it's probably not very intuitive to you, but after me looking at the letters for so long, I'm happy to say that it looks legible, even with the poorer writing style. Oh yeah, and everything with this highlight is mine, and everything else is the person who was helping. Here's when I tried to make a font. This is also a good example of seeing how the loops go into one another. Although, as you can tell, because this was a sort of digital version of the handwriting, it's not connected very well. But that's the general vibe is correct. And this was sort of me trying to map a sentence onto some guides to show where things should be falling. Although, honestly, this example is probably not a good one. But it more or less is right in that the punctuation should always be on the middle line, and that the loops should always extend fully to the top and bottom and end up on the same line. For each of them should be the same height, more or less, and that the vowels should always be below the middle line and the consonant should always be above. I definitely intentionally made this language to be something that looks really confusing at first glance, but is very regular to the point where it becomes very easy to read when you're not even paying that much attention. Don't worry too much about this. This was me thinking about what the correct technical dimensions for a typing font would be. Anyway, so that's all of those examples, and there's more in other places as well. Let's see. Yeah, so let me show you the first version of Lafya when it was called Yaili. These are my original notes. I don't know if you can read these very well, if the zoom is not good enough, but don't worry about it too much because I'll probably make this document accessible. The best thing about version 1 is the aesthetic of the words was the best it had ever been. I'll read off some examples to both show how pronunciation is supposed to work and also show the shortcomings and the vibe. One of the words that I keep remembering over and over is hielan. Hielan is in this original dictionary, and it means to do, so it comes up in most sentences. Let's see. Na would mean me, ne would mean you, and nane was person. But then we'd also have things like ninenwe, which means hill, yayin, which means day. We would have wehai, which means spiders or hunters. Enwaleha means flower. Feyaye is a fairy or spirit. Alifia is a bird. Iwina is a tree, and other such words like Anelna is meditate. Areya is to grow. Walawan is to merge. Nelwa means just is, in the same kind of way of Japanese des. Let's see. Arye means an alternate. Lelifen means sleeping. So fen means to be powered off or to rest, and leli is night. So night resting is sleeping. Leon, lion fiend means what kind of. So these words sound great to me. They sound like one of Tolkien's elven languages, and I would love to see an elf try to speak this language, because it'd be great. But as you can kind of tell, this is not so much a language as a proto-dictionary. There's not a single rule of grammar in the whole thing. Maybe some implications of possible rules of grammar. Actually, is this the original? Yeah, it is. So one of the problems is that there's no morphemes. There's no sounds that have the same meaning in every word that they're in. Like, for instance, in English you'd have fire truck and fireplace. You would know instantly that the word fire being in them is relevant, and you would pretty much be able to suss out their meaning immediately if you had heard the word fire before. You wouldn't be going into fireplace thinking, oh, that's such a new, weird sounding word. I've never heard of that before. It can't possibly be related to the word fire. Yeah, right, because fire is a morpheme in that case. It's sort of like this shorthand for like a concept in some ways. So this language has absolutely none of them in version 1, because I literally just went to zompus.org, great website, go there, and went to their word generator, and just plugged in what sounds I wanted, and then assigned them random meanings when they came out. So this is a completely empty dictionary. It has none of the sounds have any purpose or meaning outside of their literal immediate counterparts. And it was a little frustrating to have that. Not to mention, the spelling is all over the place. I don't know what this is supposed to be. There's other sort of cursed spellings. There's just... It just didn't really... It wasn't... Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It just wasn't. So then I worked on some minor grammatical choices in version 2, where I changed the language from Yaeli to Lafya. And these are some of the newer versions, the version 2 sort of dictionary. I changed some of the spellings, and I changed some of the grammar, and I added some things, and honestly, not much changed except that I added some spelling written examples. And hold on, I'm just organizing a little bit. nane. Where are these supposed to go? Oh well, don't worry about it. So, not much changed here. This was the dictionary I worked with for a long time, just because I needed something to practice with, and it could still do a lot of work. The aesthetic is still on point. Lafni meaning sky, yanafa meaning to eat, lelinwa meaning all the time. It's just good, but same problem as before. So for version 3, still called Lafya, but I added a Y in front of the A. Essentially, what happened was I realized that the writing system was incompatible with the syllable structure. You can see here in the Hielan example, Hielan breaks a CV pattern at the IE and at the end, and the shapes that it makes in the writing is what I would say is gross, because it reverses the positions of the consonants and the vowels, making them do these really weird acrobatics that they were not designed to do, and it just makes the whole thing seem kind of yanked and awkward. And so, in an effort to make the writing system more beautiful again, I forced everything into a strict CV structure, and I'm just going to give you a spoiler alert, that was the incorrect thing for me to do. I absolutely hated the result. I changed a lot of the words. Here, I'll show you. Let's see. The 2020 overhaul was when I kind of changed the entire word building system. I scrapped the entire other dictionary except for some of the words where I ported them over and forced them into CV. Well, we got a lot of Rayini, Herahi, Fihiri, Yanalawa, Fawa, Nafe, Yewe. And at first glance, they're fine, but I just don't like how the sentences sound anymore. I mean, example sentences here are like Yahaye na, Nahaye Fawa na, Nahaya Yeweya, Yanalawa Liha, Yahaye Fawafa, etc. And those are, I'm sure they sound fine, but compare them to phrases in the original, where you have one of my favorite phrases, Ne hielan anafia nefe alinwa inyaini, which means I eat bugs all the time. My favorite phrase. So this is version 1 and 2. As you can see, the spelling is still cursed. It's like, what is this supposed to be? But it sounds so much better. Na nelwa lelifen fiwi ayen iwina, na hielan winyi, na hea nawawe neafne, nelwa nawawe arye wanef. It just, I don't know if this makes sense, but it just sounds like a real language. And also, this language was designed to be pretty to the point where you could sing it pretty easily to use for chanting and such. So, I eat bugs all the time can end up becoming this really interesting sounding thing, like if you were to be like, Nehielan anafya nefe elinwa inyaeni. And it's just like, I eat bugs. Which is exactly what I want this language to be. I want it to be like everything you do just sounds magic. But as you can see, it is a little bit of an aesthetic difference from the other ones that we were just looking at. These are a little too robotic sounding, in my opinion. the definitions and the grammar I was coming up with, I'm actually fairly happy with. I just needed to get out of the syllable structure I'd put myself into. One of the things that I liked about I guess this is version 3, is that I came up with these concepts, these 7 groups of words, these 7 categories. I like them very much. Basically, what I did first is I looked for basic concepts that are available in every language, so to make a more functional proto-dictionary. And I found that a lot of them could be grouped together to make my life easier, and then I realized that they might be able to be useful to make other people's lives easier as well. So I grouped the concepts into sort of like food, anatomy, physical stuff, social, interpersonal relationship stuff, complex concepts of science and philosophy, basic concepts of daily routine, species and weather in nature, magic and art and spirits, and utility, grammar, precision, and structure. So, like, in this last category would be things like units of space and time. And with these categories, I've realized that it's a fairly good balance, and the emphasis of different things works great in this language. So let's see. Yeah. So those basic linguistic concepts are called semantic primes. In case you want to look them up yourself, I think it's very interesting. The other grammar things I was working on maybe are they're most of them are just simple proposals so far. Um, I know that I want SVO for most of the time, and for doing manifestations specifically to do OVS, that would be subject verb object like in English, and object verb subject. I don't remember any examples for that one. Um, and also, what was it? Right. I wanted modifiers to come. Hmm. Yeah. I'm like trying to remember what I did, and now I'm looking at I remember. So you have subject modifier, particle, modifier verb, modifier object. That's the template. I don't remember what linguistic labels those have, but that's how mine is arranged. So that what you're talking about um, is modified by things like an adjective, like tall or old, before the thing in the later half of the sentence after particle, but before the particle, it's the subject in this case first, and then how you describe it after. And then the particle itself, these aren't the words that I'm going to end up with, but I was working on a particle that indicates do or is based on volition. Like, I did it on purpose, it was done to me on purpose, I did it on accident, or there's none specified. So, like, for instance, you can say something like, I kicked her in the teeth. But depending on what particle you use, it could be like, I accidentally kicked her in the teeth versus I totally on purposely kicked her in the teeth. Which is, in my opinion, two very different sentences. So the idea is this is a quick and simple way to add clarity early on in a conversation. Let's see. I also have a work in progress pronoun system. Don't worry about that. I specifically didn't want anything to be gendered by default in this language. Gender is always something that you can put on something, but never comes with it necessarily. I'm simply tired of gender in language, and I'm sure lots of other people are too. And I want to facilitate a language where it is more in the control of the speaker. So, but the pronoun system has nothing to do with gender, actually. It's just a bunch of different options you have for making conversation more clear. Like, okay, if you write fan fiction, and I know a lot of people do, if you ever write fan fiction, or I guess any fiction, isn't it hard sometimes when you're talking about two guys and you just have to say he for both of them, or you have to put in some weird crap like him and the other one, and him and his friend, or him and the other person, and you have to give them all titles or something, or if you just use him, then nobody knows who you're talking about at any one point. Well, this system was supposed to be able to be a little useful for those kinds of situations. You can just sort of use that person, the other person, a third person, and some other things you can throw in for the same kind of gist. So that if you're talking about a significant number of topics at the same time in the same sentence, even a complex scenario will be a little easier to talk about. So yeah, that's the idea behind that. I don't think there's any other grammar notes to talk about so far. That's right. Yeah, I think. Oh, right. I keep forgetting about this. Well, let me tell you about how forcing a CV syllable structure worked out for me. Because I was working with a very limited palette of phonetic inventory, very, very small alphabet, and I had severely limited the way that those letters can be put together, I was also making it very hard for myself to make different sounding words. And one of the things I tried to incorporate to make that less of a problem is vowel lengths, and I came up with 3 vowel lengths: a normal, a double, and a triple. And so I would use them to indicate different levels of something. I thought it would make a great concept if, like, le meant cold, le meant warm, and le meant hot. I mean, sure, like at first glance or on paper, it kind of makes sense, but in practice, they're so close together that it creates some really heinous situations. Like this. This is a linguistics crime. Hine means toxic or contaminated. Hine means safe for consumption. Yeah, like there's no possible way that could become a problem. Not like, if you're in a restaurant and you're just like shouting over the sounds of, like, people boiling water and dinging toaster ovens and crap. Just being like, hey, is this hine or hine? And the other person goes, oh, it's hine. And you're like, wait, which one did you say? Is it toxic or is it safe? This is not a problem that is good to allow. I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, I know homophones and like similar sounding words are in every language, but yeah, there's some stuff that I feel like I shouldn't be able to get away with. I might keep vowel length, but I'm definitely not going to rely on that as the only differentiation between two very different things. I think I will keep this these words. Just I will make the actual phonetics much different. I'm gonna keep the definitions, I think, because it's working on a system of trying to give a big, nice, broad arsenal of concepts really fast to allow people to use to express themselves in a way that's regular enough that they'll be able to figure it out for themselves if they don't memorize it. But on the other hand, it does as formulaic, being potentially good, it also makes it so that they're hard to tell apart, and I didn't realize how much of a problem that would be until it happened. Let's see. So, solutions. If version 3 was an overhaul, the version 4 will be an underhaul. We're going to completely reverse what I did with the syllable structure, and I'm going to go back and allow vowel clusters. I'm going to allow consonants in the coda. I'm gonna do it in a limited way so that it can work well with the writing system. But I'm gonna do more to change the writing system to suit the phonetics rather than the other way around. Um, I was working on this as like what sounds I felt like I was going to be able to allow in consonant clusters. Um, and I will continue to develop these potential differences, and I'll have to rework the writing system a little bit to allow those kinds of things. But honestly, I'm happy because I was feeling kind of like intellectually constipated about this language for a while, and I think this is what I needed to change that. Is just realizing when something wasn't going to work, cutting it loose, and trying again. I mean, I certainly learned something. Um, and I guess this will finally help me fight my addiction for making semantically dense languages, because this is specifically not supposed to be one. The words are supposed to be long, different from each other, and sort of um, breathable, with lots of room for understanding a sentence even when you miss a couple syllables, rather than having the entire meaning change. Um, let's see. Yeah, I think that's all we wanted to get around to today. So let me know what you think. Of course, if you're one of my YouTube watchers, hi, and sorry if this is, I guess, mood whiplash. Just letting you know that my entire channel is gonna be mood whiplash constantly. Um, And for those on the Discord, feel free to give me direct feedback on this video, either in the comments or in the Discord. And uh, for both groups, I would especially love it if people who are interested in like magical language for the purposes of ritual, if people like that would give me a holler. And thank you to the ones who already are. Um, I want to make it so that this language isn't just good for my purposes, but that it's like a public resource, like available for anybody who wants to use it. And also, I just wanted to make it very clear, just because I'm a witch and just because I'm making a magic language doesn't mean that if you're like an atheist or you're from a different faith that you can't use the language, or that you can't be on my channel. Like, you absolutely can. You absolutely can. You can use this language for fictional settings. You can use this language for just being pretty and decorating. It's not like, it's not gonna rear up and bite you if you're not a witch. So just don't be afraid of it. Even if you're a Christian, like if you don't do witchcraft with it, it's not witchcraft. So um, let's see. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a good day. And, stay dinosaur.